When I say woman, I mean potential partners, hookups, or people on dates. Why did you lie about it, and what was your body count when they asked if you remember? Also, did you lie because it was low or because it was high? Story 1. I lied about it once. I was freshly out of a divorce and had started seeing someone casually. She asked, and I told her I had been with about 4 people. The truth was, I had only ever been with one, but I did not want her to feel uncomfortable about it. We never did anything, but with the next person I was honest, and she has been very patient and understanding with my anxiety about it. Story 2. When I was young, I did not lose my virginity until I was 19, so I lied and pretended I had experience when I did not. Story 3. 1. I do not lie to anyone about my number of partners, and nobody asks anyway. 2. As point 1 implies, the number is very underwhelming. Story 4. Only once, and it was when I lost my virginity. The woman I was with was not a virgin and was not interested in virgins. If she had known, I would not have been able to be with her. In retrospect, that was a red flag, but when you are young and inexperienced, you are young and inexperienced. Story 5. Yes, when I was younger, I lied and said I did not keep count because I was embarrassed and thought the number was low. I did not have to keep count when the number was 3. Story 6. Yes, the first time I said I had already had sex. I had been turned down before by girlfriends because they wanted to wait once they learned I was a virgin. Then we broke up a few weeks or months later. Story 7. I have had sex twice and told both women beforehand my respective number of previous partners because I thought they would want to know and that it was somehow important at that moment. Classic oversharing. Both women were older and more experienced than me, and both said it was fine and wondered why I thought they should know. Foolish mistake. Story 8. Why lie? It always causes greater issues down the line. Plus, I would rather people judge me by the truth any day. Story 9. I learned my lesson by being open with a partner in college, but she never got over it. Now I am vague about the number of partners. However, I am old, my wife is old, and we both had our wild younger years, so it is not really a concern anymore. Story 10. Yes, I have lied about that on occasion when I was younger. I was 18 and wanted to sound cooler than I actually was. To be honest, nowadays my answer to that sort of question would be, I am not really comfortable with this topic, and is this really a conversation you want to have? My romantic history is not anything special. There really is not much to tell, and I have been in a dry spell for many years now. Story 11. No. By the time I finally had sexual intercourse, it seemed prudent to let her know that I was a virgin because I did not want her to be surprised if it was bad. After that, I do not think anyone has asked. Story 12. No. I am not going to be in a relationship with someone I need to lie to or mislead in order to be with them. Lying is worse than any truth and does not change the truth. Story 13. No one has ever asked. At this point, I have been with the same woman for so long that I do not really remember, nor do I care. Story 14. No. Nothing to lie about. I have had 2. One was not by choice. I was sexually assaulted in college, and the other is my wife. Story 15. I honestly do not think I have been asked in a long time, and it was not by anyone I was dating. I cannot say if I lied or not because I do not know the exact number. It is not an absurdly massive number. Some experiences are just more forgettable than others. Story 16. The woman was very interested in virgins and being the first. I was not a virgin by a small margin, so it did not count. Story 17. Never lied, but sometimes did not say because they were conservative women, and I thought they would look down on me for my promiscuity. That did not work out well when they found out. Story 18. It is pretty rare for a woman to ask. I always respond, I don't want to hear your number of past partners, so I'm not going to tell you mine. Usually, they respond with, my number of past partners is only 10 because I don't want you to think I am promiscuous. It is always 10. Story 19. Yes, because being a virgin at 25 is not a good look on a guy. It did not help the performance issues. Story 20. When I was 19, I lied and told a girl that I had slept with 3 women. I was a virgin and embarrassed about my lack of experience. Story 21. I honestly do not remember the number, And if any woman asked me, I would tell her the truth. If that was a big deal for her, then okay, happy trails and goodbye. Story 22. When I first started dating, I met a woman who was disgusted because I only had 2 previous partners instead of more. My very first girlfriend, who was a virgin, was happy I was not and seemed excited about being with me instead of the other women. Story 23. Yes, but not like you think. I always answer, like a million. If they push it, I ask them their body count and tell them the same number. Then I explain that it does not matter. Every connection is unique and sex is not a competition. I then ask why they are worried about it. Story 24. No, I have not been asked since I was very young. It is immature to care about or keep track of such things. Story 25. Never. Do not ask, do not tell. I make a point of not bringing up my own past, and I do not pry either. If she presses the issue, I gradually increase the curtness until she takes a hint or I finally lash out. I may have told a story or two when they were relevant, and I tried to help a few women out of unresolved trauma, but my experiences have never been a topic of polite conversation. Story 26. I always ask if they mean alive or not. Usually, it stops the conversation in its tracks, but I am just trying to be as honest as possible. Story 27. I did. At the time, I had only had one partner and was dating someone 10 years older than me. I already knew the age difference was a little unusual for both of us, and I did not want to highlight it more by showing my inexperience. So I said I had been with 3 people before her. Story 28. No one ever asked. If they had, I would not have lied. It is a lower number because I was a serial monogamist. Story 29. I don't lie, but I don't confirm anything either. I have no idea how many women I have slept with, including sex workers, I don't know, over 200. I had a serious problem with sex for a long time. At my worst, it was common for me to be involved with my ex-wife, a steady girlfriend, and 2 or 3 sex workers each week. I will never share these details. If a girl asks directly, I won't lie, but I will say I haven't kept count. Story 30. When I was 15, I lost my virginity to a girl who was 16. She had a couple of partners before, and I lied because I did not want her to think I did not know what I was doing. I did not know what I was doing, and she knew I lied when we first hooked up. She did not care and just wanted me to be honest. We had a good relationship while it lasted. Story 31. Yes, only by omission though, and more than once. I didn't tell the first girl I had sex with that I was a virgin and instead let her own assumptions of me take hold. Things went perfectly fine and I did end up telling her 6 months later. She did not believe me for quite a while, which leads me to believe it was the right decision. It seemed like having that information was only going to make it a bigger deal than it needed to be. My wife similarly thinks I was a huge player. While I did have a player phase, it only just started heating up for most of a year when I met her. The number she assumes is in the double digits. The reality is it's less than 10. I have no intention of dispelling her assumptions. So why go this route? Because women respect social validation. Being a virgin means you have no social validation. Being highly sought after means you have plenty of social validation. If someone has a preconceived notion in my favor, I'm not going to undermine myself. Story 32. No. If you lie and end up in a long-term relationship, there is a good chance the truth will come out. I have been in 2 relationships that I ended because of this. The funny thing is in both relationships, they were the ones who asked about past partners, not me, and they both lied. We could have avoided the whole thing if they had never asked. It made no sense. Story 33. Probably. I cannot remember specifics of every past relationship offhand. I would have to sit and think for a while. It is not information that I ever think about or keep in my mind. It is not a high number. Story 34. Yes, but I did eventually tell the truth. I originally just said the number was 1 when it was 0. I had lost several girls' attention during my years in college when I would start off by saying I was a virgin. So I felt the need to lie about the number. Before we had sex at all, I admitted the truth and she did not care, which was nice. But I was insecure about it and it had turned several girls away before, so I just did not want to risk it. Story 35. There is a difference between lying and being vague. A couple or a few normally means 2 to 5, but I used to grade that on a curve. Now, I do not have a clue off the top of my head. I have been with the same woman for 20 years, so it is the same as it was then. Story 36. No, most did not ask to be honest, but if they did, I would be honest. Whether they think it is too high or not is on them for asking. Honestly, mine is probably higher than I like if I think about it. I can count on one hand the partners that mattered. The rest were one-night stands or friends with benefits, and that gets old after a while. What matters is that you are faithful to the person you are with. It is the same reason I do not ask the other way. Fundamentally, I do not care. Story 37. I have never been asked, and the only time I did ask was when I was inexperienced and about to have sex for the first time with a girl who was more experienced than I was. I do not care and will never ask, and if someone does ask me, I will demur. Story 38. I have never lied. However, when my wife and I started dating years ago, we agreed to a no names, no numbers policy. I have been married 20 years and could not guess the number or tell you the name of a single ex. The same applies to her. It does not matter. It is unwise to obsess over it and let it potentially ruin an otherwise good relationship. Story 39. Yes, all the time, especially when I was younger, and every other guy has too. No girl wants to date a guy who hasn't been to a party in months or years and cannot remember the last time he was intimate. So guys lie. You say you're really busy that weekend when you're not doing anything, or that you broke up with your girlfriend a little while back when it was 2 years ago. Story 40. Yeah, I lied once in my early 20s. I told her 6 when it was actually like 15. She said she would never date a guy with double digits, so I panicked and toned it down. We dated for 3 months, then she cheated. Wild times. Story 41. I have never been with a woman who has ever asked me that. My wife and I both got sexually transmitted diseases tests at the beginning of our relationship. Story 42. If the topic arises, I tell the truth. The only reason to lie about your number of partners is because you are ashamed of it and afraid it will ruin your chances with someone. Story 43. When I started dating the woman who eventually became my wife, we made a deal that information on our previous relationships was off limits. If anybody asked, I would tell them in a nice way that it was none of their business. Story 44. Could not remember. Unsure of actual numbers myself. Estimated a few times to the best of my ability, but always had the best transparency in mind. So they were not really lies technically, as lies are something sold as truth that is demonstrably untrue. Story 45. Honestly, I would not count dates because I cannot remember them all. However, I was always honest about the number of partners. There is no reason to lie here. Story 46. I have not. She asked how many and in what time frame, and it was too many. This did not stop her from sleeping with me. She just wanted to see my latest test results first. I get tested fairly often just in case. Story 47. I will always tell them honestly, but I make them very aware that no good comes from this question and it always leads to a fight. Story 48. Not intentionally, it depends on what we count. Just sex or anything. Sometimes there is miscommunication, or I forget the exact number and give a rough estimate. Story 49. I have never had to, and I would not. There is no point in starting any possible relationship on a lie. For the record, I do not have a body count. If that is a problem for her, then so be it. I would rather have someone who accepts me for who I am than someone who makes up lies. It is not worth it. Story 50. Yes, I did. I was a virgin at 21 and was embarrassed to admit it, so I lied. Little did I know, the girl I was lying to ended up being my wife. I have been married for 8 years and have been with her for 17 years now. Story 51. Yes, I stopped keeping a body count in my early 20s. So whatever number I say is essentially made up. Story 52. I see many comments saying you've never been asked. I have been asked by nearly every woman I've dated. I don't lie, but I do ask if they are truly sure they want an honest answer. My most recent ex, who was the only one who seemed to care, would still bring it up years later. She also had only one other partner before me. I find I have been asked mostly for 2 reasons. 1. They believe I am a player or look like a player, though I still do not understand what that means. They think I am a virgin, mostly because I am not aggressive when pursuing them. I do not make moves or behave in ways many men do, which I find toxic and inappropriate. I grew up around mostly women and find much male dating behavior disgusting. From my experience, when they ask, it goes one of two ways. Either they are disgusted or surprised, or they do not care. As for asking a woman, I do not. I only ask if they are sexually experienced. My concern is not how many partners they have had, but if they enjoy the act itself. There is no reason to lie. Story 53. I have never lied when asked about my sexual past. We did not call it body count back then. My ex and my wife asked me when we were dating, and I told them. With my ex, it was 18, and with my wife, it was 19. About 14 of those were not relationships. I had a serious heartbreak that really hurt me. So, I threw myself into alcohol and slept with many women I did not even care about. I did not want to care about them. They ranged in age from 18 to 43. I felt bad about the way I treated them when I quit drinking because some of them were good women. Story 54. I find it is best if you do not ask and do not tell. Will this information make a relationship better? I doubt it, but I have definitely seen it make things worse. Story 55. Body count of almost 30. He lied about it for almost 2 years, and it destroyed our 2-year relationship. We were ready to get married. I am not sure if a high body count is a good thing or not. It may mean less lustful and more faithful because they know the grass is not greener on the other side. The best is to say it after a few dates. It might be mostly a deal breaker for a woman, based on what I have seen and heard from other women as well. Story 56. Never been asked, and if I was, I would politely push back on the question as I do not think it is relevant, and I would not ask it of a partner. I would not give the real number because it is high and would likely result in misplaced judgment. If someone insisted on me answering that question, to me, that is indicative of problematic insecurities that would likely lead to further problems down the line. I imagine that last sentence will rub some people the wrong way, so just remember it is my opinion and does not impact you at all. Story 57. When it was lower than 5, I said it was 10. Then when it was higher than 15, I said it was 10. I did not want to sound inexperienced or unprofessional. Story 58. No. If you do not like how I have lived my life, then we are not compatible. I also do not care how many people any girl has been with. It is truly arbitrary. Story 59. Sort of lied by omission because women are harshly judgmental and do not give you a chance when that number is 0. The virgin shaming is real. Story 60. No. If you are ashamed of your number, you were not mature enough to engage in casual relationships in the first place. Story 61. There is no shame in my game. If people do not like me as I am not going to pretend to be something else. You sell what you advertise. Story 62. No. I have never asked and have never been asked. I do not want to know and assume they would rather not as well. Story 63. Yes. Mostly because I knew they would judge me harshly. I realized if you cannot accept it, you are not my match. Story 64. I can count the number of partners I had in 42 years on one hand. Of those, only one was talented in bed. One was a virgin and the others were kind of okay. I never boasted about how many partners I had simply because I did not have enough to boast about anyway. Story 65. Yeah, I'd be shooting myself in the foot if I lied to a person I want to be romantically involved with. That being said, not one of my 12 long-term girlfriends has ever asked about my count. I must be choosing them right. Story 66. I have never had a potential partner care to ask. I just assumed they did not want to know, so I said nothing. Story 67. I have never been directly asked. I think my wife and I went down the list once just out of curiosity. Story 68. Only once, the woman I lost my virginity to. I was too embarrassed to tell her I was a virgin, so I made up a number. Story 69. I have not lied about it, but I also have not outright said the number. She has never asked, and I do not really think it matters that much. If she asked, I would tell her, but I would not create a problem where one did not already exist, if you know what I mean. Story 70. For what it is worth, as a woman, never lie about this. Whatever your reason is, it is always going to be a red flag to actively lie about it. My ex had a body count of 1 but said he was a virgin. He brought the conversation up too, so it came across as super weird. 2 weeks later, he mentioned out of the blue that he had to tell me something, and that he had been lying about that. Super weird, and I would not have cared if he had just been honest. Story 71. My girlfriend asked me, and I told her it was none of her business and hers was none of mine. That was the last we spoke of it. My ex asked me, and I was honest, which hurt our sexual relationship for years. It is a pretty big number. Story 72. I have been with many women, and not a single one has ever asked about how many partners I have had. Story 73. No. On the other hand, I have been with exactly 2 women. That did shock and surprise the second one, as there were a few years between her and the first. What can I say? I do not care for hookups and one-night stands. Story 74. I have never told any woman how many other sexual partners I have had. Not even my wife of 15 years. I feel it is no one's business. Story 75. I was quite promiscuous in my 20s with approximately 30 to 35 sexual partners. I am not sure of the exact number. Once I reached about half of that, I began either lying or avoiding the question altogether. Story 76. Oh yeah, lie to all of them, and that's what I tell them too. My body count? All of them, I have been with all those. Shorty, get with the program. Story 77. No. I was always the settle-down type ever since I was young and beautiful. By the time I was married, I was only 18 and had had only one other serious girlfriend before her. Story 78. My body count when they asked was 1, but I said 0. Mostly because I had slept with a man first, and I found some women are really put off by bisexual men. She seemed really innocent and vanilla. We are still together, and she still has no idea that I like men too. Story 79. Body count is irrelevant. I have known some terrible virgins and some sweethearts who loved to be intimate. Mostly, I have known average people who have average amounts of sex and are more or less decent people. I do not lie about how many partners I have had, but it is strange to ask, and I am never the one who brings it up because it is unnecessary. Story 80. I haven't, mainly because most men don't get around like that unless they are a 7 looks-wise, constantly going for 3s, or a horn dog 8 just pursuing everything. Most guys are a 6 hoping to find someone 7 or above to be with, but in the meantime, those guys don't get that much. I would be concerned if I met a man with many partners, because that tells me either his decision-making isn't great or he is impulsive. Story 81. I always tell them I have 10 bodies when in reality I have 3. I am married now, but when I was younger, I felt like women did not want a newbie. They wanted a man with experience. I think my wife still believes I have double digits. Story 82. No, that is an incredibly bad thing to lie to someone about, especially if you are starting a relationship. Story 83. Just say 100,000. In the best case scenario, the topic is dropped. In the worst case scenario, they ask again. Usually, the topic gets dropped. Story 84. I wouldn't say it's that high, past 10, but under 20. I refuse to talk about such petty things because women's body count is usually a lot higher, and I don't want to hear about hers. It's kind of a turn off, really. Story 85. Nope. I'm in the high single digits for body count. There is no reason to lie in my opinion. If a woman doesn't want to be with me because of my body count, I feel like I dodged a bullet. Story 86. My number is high. Really high. There are many reasons. I once told a woman the truth. She swore it would not bother her, and I thought it would be a compliment to say, I have had many partners and you are the best. It did not work out that way. We broke up not long after, and while she never gave me a reason, the only thing I can point to is that conversation about my past partners. My count has tripled since then, so never again. Story 87. It is of marked interest that straight men seem to care more about the sexual history of their partners than gay men or women. Gay men seem quite free with it. I guess when there is less expectation of turning a sexual liaison into a relationship and everyone involved is honest from the start about their interests and motivations, priorities must differ. Instead of focusing on the number of partners, it shifts to compatibility, alignment, or astrology. The only time I hear or read people say history doesn't matter is regarding sex. Arrest history, loan history, living or familial history, including where someone was born and lived, all important and far more consequential for someone attempting to phish passwords. Why is it that some of the most kink-friendly people, who loudly and frequently state informed consent is the most important aspect of a sexual interaction, are suddenly all about not informing someone of something highly relevant? If I ask someone how many partners they have had, I expect a clear answer, as if I asked if they have HIV. Any hesitation to answer is a problem. I asked a question, we can discuss why after you answer it. Also, if I ask this question, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It means I suspect something. Usually, it's about impulse control or something not adding up. Often I get a clearer picture about mental illness. I've yet to find a more accurate indicator of bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. Could go the other way as well. Finding a 30-year-old woman with just 2 partners is a different kind of concern. Unlike 200 partners, just 2 could be explained by a couple of long-term relationships, maybe a marriage. One does not casually sleep with 200 people. At what point do values become important to align? Maybe this only matters months down the line, somewhere before meeting family. I learned early on not to get involved with someone unstable. That could have ruined my life. I ask questions early to see how things line up. In a casual phase, I'm not trying to turn a casual partner into a spouse. Saving yourself for marriage? I wouldn't buy a car without test driving it. Omit or obscure information I asked for at any stage. That's a 3 strikes and you're out rule. I take care to minimize all dishonesty in my life. Being lied to hurts me and leaves me vulnerable to problems I might otherwise handle before they become emergencies. I do not want that done to me, and I will not do it to others. Thankfully, I don't need to lie about anything. I am sincere and have a way with words. So whatever causes some people to say terrible things and then claim, I'm just being honest, is not a concern for me. For example, I wouldn't tell a woman her dress makes her look fat if she asked. I'd say I like it and ask her opinion. I am a man with a larger body type and mostly attract women with similar body types. I understand momentary insecurities and want to offer reassurance rather than mock others when they are insecure. As for my answer, I am a 36-year-old white American man living in Missouri and have had a total of 25 partners. All women, usually white or mixed race as well as black. All except the first 2 were met on dating apps between the ages of 22 and 33. Although it would be unfortunate if I never had sex again, I have accepted that I will not have a family and may never be in another long-term relationship unless I reverse my unwillingness to be a stepfather or become open to a polyamorous or ethically non-monogamous lifestyle where I share time with another man's wife. Currently, that idea appeals to me somewhere between a fungal infection and multiple paper cuts between my fingers. Story 88. No. Mainly because I have a reasonable number at my age. Neither promiscuous nor near virgin. Story 89. I would not say I lied outright. I once gave the wrong number because I forgot a couple of one-night stands I had. Story 90. Yes, back in college I was a bit ashamed of the low count. Later I discovered that it was not that bad. Story 91. Mujeres heterosexuales. ¿Alguna vez le ha mentido a un hombre sobre cuántas parejas sexuales ha tenido? Si es así, ¿por qué? Story 92. I do not because everyone will think I am faking it, as some people might consider it a high number. Usually, it has always been friends asking, so they only know my dorky side. Story 93. No. I am confident in my number, and my ability to please far outweighs the number of women I have been with. Story 94. No. I never wanted it to come back and haunt me later. Accept me for who I am or not. I am not going to apologize for my past. Story 95. Yes, I have. I'm in my mid-30s and have only had 2 real multi-year relationships. I have done a lot of going out and attending various social gatherings. I'd say I'm somewhat conventionally attractive and have decent conversational skills. I'm not sure about my exact number, but I'm definitely self-conscious about telling a potential partner. It could be as high as I think. So, I typically say somewhere around 25. Unfortunately, any respectable woman might be concerned if a man said he had slept with a very high number of women in his life. Story 96. See, this is why I choose not to have sex at all. It is much easier to keep track of. Story 97. No. Why? Because it is not a conversation I have ever had with a woman. I have never offered that information, and they have never asked. Why? Because that would open up the question of how many partners they have had, and I suspect that is not a conversation many women want to have. Story 98. Yes. I do not know for sure, and when I try to give an honest estimate, they normally start to judge me for it. Story 99. Lied? I never had to because it really never comes up. If someone asked me how many partners I have had, I would probably see that as maybe not a red flag but definitely a yellow flag. The past is the past, and no matter how badly someone may want to, it cannot be changed. Asking a partner about their sexual history usually does not have a positive outcome. As I said, and this may be a generational thing since I am a middle-aged man, it has never been something a potential partner asked me about. Story 100. To be honest with you, yes, I had a hunch that my count was too high because she was insecure about her past partners simply using her for sex. I knew she would react negatively if I told her my real count. I decided to lie about the number and lower it, but she still felt a bit on edge about us regardless. So, I think it was the right decision. Story 101. I have not lied, but I have definitely been hesitant because I felt the wrong answer would lead to a fight. Then I realized there is no right answer, and it will always lead to a fight. I understood that it always led to a fight either because it was a sign that I was not compatible with that person, or they were just insecure and unable to handle their emotions in a mature way. Now, I still tell the truth, but I am much more relaxed and use it as a point to decide where my relationship with this person is going. Story 102. I cannot think of a particular instance, but I probably have. For the most part, it is none of their business, and I worry that I might be judged for having multiple romantic partners. Story 103. Yes, because I stopped keeping count in my younger years. Growing up in hookup culture as a teenager and in my 20s led to many poor decisions that I am not necessarily proud of. It is somewhat a lie by omission since I say I do not know, but it is more that I lost or stopped counting. Story 104. You have to lie about it, as some women do not want a male partner who has been with many other women. Story 105. I do not ask, and when I am asked, I say that it is no one's business but mine and the women I have been with. I also never ask. Story 106. I found a really good girl who was different from the ones I was used to dating. She told me she had one partner before me. We were both 18. She asked how many partners I had, and I said 3, so she would be my 4th. I couldn't lie and say a lower number because she knew 2 girls from her school. The actual number at the time was between 30 and 40. It didn't work out. I was a terrible person then, and we broke up after I cheated a few times. We stayed friends for a long time afterward. Story 107. Have you ever lied to a woman about how many sexual partners you have had? Always. I would not call it a lie though, just half answers. I have had 2 girlfriends. Only you, that I can remember. I do not really think much about my past. With you and maybe some other girl some time ago. Why do you ask? No good result can ever come from talking excessively about past relationships or sexual encounters. Why? Because it is none of their business. It is a rude question. Their concern ends with whether I am clean or not. How many people I have been with is something that is not for them to know. Story 108. I have never been asked that. Maybe it is not considered as important a question for women. I do not know. It is definitely an important question for men if she has it pretty high, which is not a difficult feat for a woman nowadays with social media. Story 109. My number is very high, possibly triple digits or at least close. I lost count a long time ago. There is no way I share that with a partner, so I tell them 2, 8, 12, depending on what I think they want to hear. Story 110. No. Why would it matter? Unless she is riddled with sexually transmitted diseases and sexually transmitted infections, I could not care less what her number is. I would be more concerned if she was a cheater. Story 111. No. But I have never understood why the number is relevant for the current relationship. Do people have an exact number in mind as criteria to keep or end the relationship? 3 partners, 4, 10, 11? In any case, they would have to take their word for it. Does she value sexual openness and experiences? That might be useful. But exact body counts, no. Story 112. I think the ideal range is between 5 and 15. Anything less may indicate inexperience or being undesirable. Anything more may indicate being impossible to settle down with or having sexually transmitted diseases. I also don't keep count myself. I told myself I am doing it purely for enjoyment and not to record a number to prove something to anyone else. But if anyone is curious, when traveling in Thailand and the Philippines, I averaged around 3 new partners per week. I was there 3 times for almost a year. My friend was doing about the same but was recording it all in a spreadsheet for himself, though I figured it was not worth the effort. Live in the moment. Story 113. If I had ever been asked, I would likely ignore that individual. I do not care how many men you have slept with. If you care about how many women I have slept with, it comes off as insecure. Story 114. You have to lie and increase your score slightly. This way, it at least seems like you are competing and not being defeated badly like a poor football team. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.